students, welcome to the lecture on training methods. And after the lecture, we will be able to learn the following objectives. Explain concepts of training methods. Understand method of role play. Define training techniques. Give the overview of demonstration. Understand critical incident technique, CIT. Explain computer-based training, CBT. Discuss electronic performance support systems, EPSS. Explain distance and internet-based training. Let's start with a brief introduction to training methods. During the last 100 years in the training development field, it has seen many rapid changes and still continues experiencing them in its headlong rush to keep up with the evolutionary process of adaptation to an ever-changing world and its ever-changing technology. With this, the never-ending process comes for developing new learning process and methods to meet this changing technology.
Included within this process is how organizations identify training needs and select, implement, and evaluate training programs. Training is the process of teaching employees the basic skills they need to perform their jobs or for developing additional skills. The firm's training programs must make sense in terms of the company's strategic goals. For example, if one of the goals of the company is to expand its international market, then one of the things they may focus on is training their employees in multiple languages. Also, training is part of the larger issue of performance management. This is an integrated, goal-oriented approach to assigning, training, assessing, and rewarding employees' performance. Managers set goals for their employees, and training is one of the ways an organization helps an employee meet those goals. The training process includes these 5 steps. It is important that each step in the process be completed thoroughly because each builds on the other. The more time and effort spent on the previous step, the better the next steps can be. Step 1, Needs Analysis, identifies the training needs of an employee. The 2 main ways of identifying those needs are through a task analysis and a performance analysis. The task analysis is a detailed study of a job to identify the specific skills required, especially for new employees. A task analysis record form can also be used. Here is an example of this form for a printing press operator. The task analyses contain the following information: a task list, when and how often each task is performed, the quantity and quality of performance expected, the working conditions, the skills or knowledge required, and where those can be best learned. The second type of needs analysis is a performance analysis. The goal here is to verify if there is a performance deficiency and to determine whether that deficiency should be corrected through training or through some other means, such as transferring the employee. There are several methods that can be used to identify an employee's training needs, including 360-degree performance reviews, job-related performance data, observations by supervisors or other specialists, and tests of things like job knowledge and skills. When beginning the discussion of what types of training methods to use, there are several tips to keep in mind to make the training more effective. First, the learning needs to be meaningful. Material that is meaningful is usually easier for trainees to understand and remember. For example, it is important at the start of training to provide a bird's-eye view of the material to be presented. It is also valuable to use a variety of familiar examples and to organize the information so it can be presented logically and in meaningful units. Second, it is imperative to design the training to make it easy for the skills being learned to transfer from the training site to the job site. This can be accomplished by maximizing the similarity between the training environment and the work situation, and by providing time for adequate practice. It is also important to provide a heads-up or some preparatory information that lets trainees know what problems or situations may occur on the job. Lastly, it is important to motivate the learner. This is easily done by defining for the learner why the training is important and how it will benefit them. People learn best by doing, so provide as much realistic practice as possible and allow them to learn at their own pace. Trainees also learn best when the trainers immediately reinforce correct responses. With this in mind, take a look at several different methods organizations can use when designing their training. I will not spend time discussing all of them as you can read about them in your text, but understand that each method has advantages and disadvantages. Thus, depending on the situation, each method can be a valuable tool for teaching employees new skills and behaviors. Step 3 is the validation process. By now, the term validity should be a familiar one. We discussed this in great detail during the selection chapter when we talked about how organizations create valid selection measures for hiring new employees. In order to determine a training's validity, the company must test the training on a sample of employees to see if those who receive the training have better performance on the job than those who did not receive the training. This sampling process should be conducted on multiple groups to make sure the training is valid. Implementation, step 4, is the easiest to do if all previous steps have been done well. Now we simply need to train the employees that need to learn this skill or behavior. It is important to schedule the training at a time when the employee is fresh and that the training is broken down into small segments to lower the chance of fatigue. Step 5, evaluating the training, is the most overlooked step. In many instances, organizations will spend a lot of time and resources on the first 4 steps and then completely forget about what is arguably the most important part of the training process. My point is that it makes no sense for organizations to spend hundreds or even tens of thousands of dollars on designing a training program to not have any proof that the training actually has proven results. There are 4 basic ways to measure training effectiveness. The first is the trainee's reaction to or perception of the training. Did they like it? Did they enjoy it? These reactions are very similar to the types of evaluations you complete at the end of every semester on your teachers. The second way is to measure the trainee's learning. This can be done by testing the individual's knowledge of the material covered. Third is to assess the trainee's behavior. Are they using the skills or behavior they learned in the training in the actual work environment? Lastly, organizations should measure the results or outcomes of the training. In other words, did those who participated in the training actually improve their job performance? This is an example of a time series experiment. Before training, the company measures employee performance several times. In a perfect world, this is what all organizations hope to see as a result of training. Ultimately, what organizations want to see is a significant increase in employee performance, which is illustrated on the right side of the graph. In the end, if organizations can't track this and understand how training is affecting performance, then the training is not as effective as it could be. In conclusion, today we have discussed the basics of designing and implementing a training program. It is a complicated and time-consuming process, but in the end, a well-constructed training program is worth the effort, which must include all 5 steps.
Let's discuss about the concept of training methods. The objectives and need for training should be clearly identified, and the method or type of training should be chosen according to the needs and objectives established. Only through trained and efficient employees can an organization achieve its objectives. To impart to the new entrants the basic knowledge and skills they need for an intelligent performance of definite tasks. To prepare employees for more responsible positions. To bring about change in attitudes of employees in all directions. To reduce supervision time, reduce wastage, and produce quality products. To reduce defects and minimize accident rate. To absorb new skills and technology. Helpful for the growth and improvement of employees' skills and knowledge.
Welcome to the presentation on employee training process. The first step in the training process for any organization is to assess the objectives of the training program and then devise a strategy or method to administer the same. Objectives are the end results which the organization wants to achieve within a given time frame. Objectives should be realistic and measurable. They should help in guiding and motivating the employees to accomplish their mission. You need a strategy for defining the method adopted by the organization to meet the objectives. Strategies are used as a roadmap for accomplishing organizational objectives. Why do you need to assess training needs? Assessments are needed to identify the performance gap between what is actually needed and what is the current level of performance among the employees. By assessing training needs, one can understand what the organization expects from the employees and to what extent the employees meet those requirements. If there is a mismatch between what the organizations expect from their employees and what is actually delivered by them, it means there is a learning gap. Training assessments help to identify this learning gap. Based on the learning gaps found, organizations can define the learning objectives and plan a training program to bridge the learning gap. Let us examine how establishing the goals before training is very important. A training program should have well-defined goals stating clearly the benefits of the program. Goals and objectives together define the major component of training initiatives. Goals must be stated in advance for achieving learning objectives that can be measurable in concrete terms. Thus, training goals determine the overall direction of the training program so that the learner and the trainer both get a clear description of the learning outcomes which they expect. Let's look at the factors you need to consider while designing a training program. Before starting the training program, the trainer should have relevant information about the participants and their profile so that he can devise a method that best suits their requirements, keeping in mind the training objectives. Once the training objectives have been decided, the trainer can start preparing the training content based on those specific training areas that need development. Before designing a training program, the trainer should analyze all the raw materials for instruction, organize the information in a coherent and comprehensible manner, and put it into a framework. Once you have the necessary information, you need to decide on the medium of instruction. It could be through PowerPoint presentations, classroom training, or online training. Before delivering the training program, you need to test it for its effectiveness in terms of meeting organizational goals. Implementation of the training program involves putting the training plan into action. The trainer needs to prepare the learning environment before the start of the training session. The trainer should create an environment which is comfortable for the employees so that they can freely ask questions and clarify their doubts without any hesitation. Therefore, the trainer needs to do the following. It is important that the trainer is comfortable and confident with the content of the training so that he or she can clarify all the doubts of the employees and make them feel satisfied with the training. The training session should not be scheduled beyond regular working hours. To avoid employees being distracted, the trainer should try to make the training session very interesting by showing demonstrations and encouraging employees to participate in the session. The trainer should use appropriate methodologies such as role plays, quizzes, and interactive games to keep participants involved and engaged in the training. The trainer should use simple methods to evaluate employees' performance on a regular basis. The purpose of training evaluation is to determine whether the goals and objectives of training have been achieved. This can be done at the end of the training session. The methods of evaluating a training program includes the following. Feedback from participants who have attended the training session through questionnaires or feedback forms. Supervisors can be contacted after a reasonable period of time to understand the extent to which the participants are applying the skills and knowledge gained from the training program in their jobs.
Role-playing is a laboratory method which can be used rather easily as a supplement to conventional training methods. Its purpose is to increase the trainee's skill in dealing with other people. Let us now talk about the advantages and disadvantages of role-play method. Advantages. It is energizing. It helps the suppressed and illiterate to express their feelings. It is simple and low-cost learning tool. It focuses on problems which are real. It presents complex issues simply and in a short while. It does not need materials, props, or advanced preparation. Disadvantages. There is a possibility of the role play becoming entertainment which vitiates learning. Participants can get too involved in their roles and later lose objectivity during analysis. Acting can become an end in itself, and participants can overreact or distort the roles. If points for observations are not clear, it may dilute the focus of learning. Types of role play. Multiple role play. In this type of role play, all trainees are in groups, with each group acting out the role play simultaneously. Single role play. One group of participants plays the role for the rest, providing demonstrations of situation. Role rotation. This method allows a variety of ways to approach the roles. Spontaneous role play. In this kind of role play, one of the trainees plays herself while the other trainees play people with whom the first participant interacted before. Now let us talk about the training techniques. On-the-job training. The objective of on-the-job training is to bring the employees to at least a minimum acceptable standard of performance in the shortest possible time. Various methods of on-the-job training are on-specific job. The most common or formal on-the-job training programmer is training for a specific job. Experience. This is the oldest method of on-the-job training, but as a sole approach, it is wasteful, time-consuming, and inefficient. Coaching. On-the-job coaching by a superior is an important and potentially effective approach if superior is properly trained and oriented. Understudy. The understudy method makes the trainee an assistant to the current job holder. Position rotation. The major objective of job rotation training is the broadening of the background of trainee in the organization. Special projects. This is a very flexible training device. Such special project assignments grow ordinarily out of an individual analysis of weaknesses. Selective reading. Individuals in the organization can gather and advance their knowledge and background through selective reading. Apprenticeship. Apprentice training can be traced back to medieval times when those intended on learning trade skill bound themselves to a master craftsman to learn by doing the work under his guidance. Vestibule schools. Large organizations frequently provided what are described as vestibule schools, a preliminary to actual shop experience. Off-the-job training. In these methods, trainees have to leave their workplace and devote their entire time to the development objective. Following training techniques are used off the job. Special course and lectures. Special courses and lectures can be established by business organizations in numerous ways as a part of their development programs. Conferences. In order to escape the limitations of straight lecturing, many organizations have adopted guided discussion type of conferences in their training programs. Case studies. A case study is a realistic situation or a series of actual events involving a judgment call. Brainstorming. This is the method of stimulating trainees to creative thinking. Laboratory training. Laboratory training adds to conventional training by providing situations in which the trainees themselves experience through their own interaction some of the conditions they are talking about. Simulation. Simulation is the presentation of real situation of organizations in the training session. Sensitivity training. Sensitivity training is the most controversial laboratory training method. What is a demonstration? When a person or team actually performs a task, showing and explaining to learners how to do it, it is known as demonstration. While performing the demonstration, trainer demonstrates the task by describing how to do while doing, helps the focusing their attention on critical aspects of the task, tells the trainees what we'll be doing so they understand what we'll be showing them, explains why it should be carried out in that way. When to use a demonstration: when teaching a skill, when plenty of time is available, or when the skill being taught does not take much time for learners to master and practice, when the group is small, or when instructors are available to work with small groups. Advantages of a demonstration: it may provide hands-on experience, hear, see, and do. Participants get plenty of attention from the instructor. Each learner can go at his own pace to achieve mastery. Drawbacks of a demonstration: it requires a lot of time, best used when time allotment is flexible. It may require a lot of equipment and/or materials so that everyone has the opportunity to learn simultaneously. Lecturers: when one person conveys information to a group of learners by talking to them with or without the use of visual aids, it is known as lectures. When to use a lecture: the uses of lectures are in large groups, where discussion involving the learners is not practical, when topics are new to the learners and they have no relevant personal experiences, when the speaker is recognized expert in the field and people are coming to hear what he or she has to say. Simulation games: gaming simulations are an activity that works, fully or partially, on the basis of the player's decisions. Voluntary learning: when forced to learn, one learns little, as one usually resists accepting anything new in the governing mental models. Creation of turmoil: the conflict and turmoil created by gaming simulation raises the doubts in their minds and lessens their resistance to change. The big picture: the schematic approach allows participants to share a holistic view of the matter. Compression: compression of time and space makes experiential learning possible and accelerates the learning process. Risk-free environment: gaming simulation lets the participants experiment with new policies, strategies, and learning skills without risk. Shared experience: participants' individual mental models converge through shared experience, and as a result of this, commensurability is increased, something essential for the creation of a shared mental model. Rich interpretation of history: the understanding of past experience or history through gaming simulation allows us to learn from small episodes in the real world. Cause maps: uncertainty and ambiguity in the real world pose obstacles to experiential learning because they make it difficult to find meanings or invent explanations. We shall talk about the critical incident technique. The critical incident technique consists of a set of procedures for collecting direct observations of human behavior in such a way as to facilitate their potential usefulness in solving practical problems and developing broad psychological principles. The basic steps involved are: gather facts, incidents, about what actually happened. A. Before. B. During. C. After the incident. Analyze the content of the verbal report. Infer how to improve performance based on the feedback. Step 1. Gathering facts. The methodology usually employed is an open-ended questionnaire, gathering retrospective data. Step 2. Content analysis. Subsequent steps in the CIT consist of identifying the content or themes represented by clusters of incidences and conducting retranslation exercises during which the analyst or other respondents sort the incidents into content dimensions or categories. Step 3. Creating feedback. It is important to consider not only the bad, negative features of the report, but also the positive ones, so as not to undo good work or to make destructive recommendations. Drawbacks of the method. The drawbacks are: it focuses on critical incidences, therefore routine incidences will not be reported. It is therefore poor as a tool for routine task analysis. Respondents may still reply with stereotypes, not actual events, Using more structure in the form improves this, but not always. Success of the user-reported critical incident method depends on the ability of typical end users to recognize and report critical incidences effectively, but there is no reason to believe that all users have this ability naturally. Computer-based training, CBT, involves the use of a personal or networked computer for the delivery and access of training programs. Types of CBT. There are 4 levels of CBT, each based on the application's complexity and its level of interactivity with the user. Level 1. Customized linear presentation. Training similar to a standard PowerPoint overhead presentation with little interactivity. Level 2. Instructor-led, non-linear presentation. Training by a facilitator accompanied by navigation through the information on the computer, without the use of multimedia. Level 3. Facilitator Led Training. A multimedia presentation accompanied by classroom-based training. Level 4. Self-paced training. Individuals can train at their own pace, either at an outside lab or on their own desktop computer, and complete the exam provided in the program. EPSSs are generally used to provide support for performing a task, procedures and processes, finding information in databases, presenting information in alternate forms, video, audio, text, image, data. Did you know? A learning management system, LMS, will interfere with the EPSS to supply the knowledge base, content courseware, or other tracking capabilities that an EPSS may require if the LMS precedes the implementation of the EPSS. Characteristics. Computer-based. EPSSs are computer-based, which is what the electronic in their name indicates. There have been older attempts at performance support systems, such as a series of manuals, job aids, and other paper material. Provide access to the discrete, specific information. This is a 2-part characteristic. Access to the specific information and tools needed to perform a task. Access to the information and tools at the time the task to be performed. Used on the job or in simulations or other practice of the job. An EPSS provides information to people on the job or in simulations or other practice of the job. The information is provided as the worker sees a need for it. Controlled by the worker. The worker decides when and what information is needed. There is no need for an instructor because the worker is guided by the needs of the task. The motivation is provided by the worker's desire to accomplish the task. Reduce the need for prior training in order to accomplish the task. The easy availability of the information needed to perform a task reduces the need for much prior training. Easily updated. The very nature of an EPSS that it provides the information needed to perform a task requires that it be easily updated in order to keep the information current. The computerized nature of an EPSS makes updating faster and easier in some ways than in other media, such as print. Fast access to information. The user must be able to find information quickly when it is needed on the job. Otherwise, the EPSS is no better than a printed manual, which probably contains the information, but it may be more difficult to find. Irrelevant information excluded. The user is able to access only the specific, discrete information needed at an instant, instead of having to wade through loads of irrelevant information to find a few details. Integrate information, advice, and learning experiences. An EPSS can integrate information, advice, and learning experiences. Users may not know if the procedure is the proper one to use, so they might turn to the advisor to find out. Classifying the range of EPSS designs. Defining a range of technologies that could be classified as electronic performance support systems, EPSS, involves defining which and how many EPS characteristics are necessary and is displayed. Let's explore the distance and internet-based training. Firms today use various forms of distance learning methods for training. These ranges from paper and pencil correspondence courses to teletraining, video conferencing, and modern internet-based courses. Teletraining. With teletraining, a trainer in a central location teaches groups of employees at remote locations television's hookups. Video conferencing. It allows people in one location to communicate live via a combination of audio and visual equipment with people in another city or country, or with groups in several cities. Internet-based training. Employers extensively used web-based learning. Many firms simply let their employees take online courses offered by online course providers. Others use their proprietary internal intranets to facilitate computer-based trainings. Effectiveness. Web-based instruction was a bit more effective than classroom instruction for teaching declarative knowledge. Now in the end, let us summarize what we have learned in this lecture. The objectives and need for training should be clearly identified, and the method or type of training should be chosen according to the needs and objectives established. Training plays a significant role in human resource development. Human resources are the lifeblood of any organization. Role-playing is a laboratory method which can be used rather easily as a supplement to conventional training methods. On-the-job training methods are by far the most commonly used in training for all levels of personnel. A simulation is a more complex form of role-playing and case study. Simulations are used to recreate environments where participants experience potential situations that could happen.